So you may have heard about the script leaks that are related to Star Wars Episode 9, the Collin Trevorrow version that was not made. Well, guess what? A bunch of high-res concept art just showed up on the internet, which is completely different than what we got in The Rise of Skywalker. Apparently also The Rise of Skywalker, the Art of book, is being recalled to remove some stuff, so it'll be interesting to see whether any of this stuff actually makes the cut. There is some fascinating stuff here though, and I kind of just want to talk about it and go through it, and also use this as a video to announce some stuff that's coming up here soon, which I think you may like. So if you want to leave a like on this video, that'd be great. Right, so I just want to mention that these images come from the earliest draft, which Robert Meyer Burnett ran through on his channel. I'll link that below if you do want to check it out. It was a very early days version of the film. It was before the release of The Last Jedi, and even before Carrie Fisher passed. So it's unlikely that what we get here would have been exactly the final version if Trevorrow had even stayed on. So Coruscant was going to feature heavily in this movie, culminating in a huge battle. The First Order would have taken it over, and they would have taken the Art Deco skyline that we saw in the prequels and kind of hodgepodge built on top of it, so it's a bit more ramshackled. And this floating over the top is the First Order capital ship. Hux is still second in charge of the First Order. Kylo Ren is off hiding. We'll talk about him in a minute. This character being executed is Bisk Kova. You see they look like they're in a rebel flight uniform. This movie was going to open with members of the rebellion stealing a Star Destroyer, which is then used later in the movie. And Finn, Poe, and Rose are captured and then rescued by Rey, who shows up in a Tusken Raider disguise, only to reveal this outfit, very reminiscent of Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. And this double-bladed lightsaber is apparently a combination of the Skywalker lightsaber and that staff that she's carrying. But anyway, getting back to this is a laser guillotine. And this person here, this wasn't mentioned in the script breakdown, looks a lot like Captain Phasma. So I do wonder whether maybe at some point she was going to survive in The Last Jedi, or maybe she was just going to have that same fate and she was brought back regardless. Maybe it's not her at all though, who knows. This is Rey meditating because she's under the tutelage of Luke Skywalker as a ghost. Apparently there's some conflict between the two of them because she thinks the way the Jedi have been operating and the whole light-dark aspect of the Force has never really worked, so they kind of come to loggerheads about that. Also, Kylo Ren, and there aren't any images of this unfortunately, he's hiding out on Vader's castle and haunted by the ghost of Luke Skywalker. So you know when he said, "I'll see you around, kid," I guess he meant that literally and not as a metaphor, I guess. He ends up finding a Sith holocron with a message from the Emperor, who's still dead by the way, which explodes in his face because it was intended for Darth Vader, and he ends up smelting Mandalorian metal to his head to kind of repair it, which we see a little bit more of later. So this is Coruscant as well, where Finn, Rose, R2-D2 and C-3PO, they're going to the lower levels, to the old Jedi temple, because the idea is that they're going to activate a beacon, which will send out across the galaxy and the First Order can't block it, which will rally people to their cause. There's actually an image later where we see Finn and what I think is Rose activating that very beacon, calling in the likes of Broom Kid and Bosk even. Not a joke, apparently he was really in it. Great stuff. Meanwhile though, while that's happening, Kylo Ren travels to Remicor because the message from the Emperor mentioned a Tor Valum. He's this old Sith teacher who apparently instructed the Emperor and I guess Plagueis, I assume. Anyway, he teaches Kylo, though, how to drain the life force out of somebody, which also comes into play later. And he sends him also into a Sith cave, you know, similar to what happens to Luke on Dagobah. And he also duels an apparition of Darth Vader, and in doing so, he actually loses. While all this is happening, though, Rey, Poe, Chewbacca, BB-8, they go to the planet Bonadan, which in the concept art notes that that's where Poe used to live with his grandfather. This ship here that they're having a run-in with, that's the Knife 9, which reintroduces the Knights of Ren. Rey apparently kills them all as well, so there you go. I guess they don't factor that much into this version either. This is Finn rallying the underground of Coruscant to rise up against the First Order. Apparently a lot of them are also made up of defected stormtroopers like he is. Maybe word spread that he escaped and kind of inspired these people to leave. And what they end up doing is outfitting all the vehicles from the stolen Star Destroyer, AT-STs and the like, to use against the First Order. And we see a bit of that going on here. The battle that takes place on Coruscant ends up being a lot of defected stormtroopers, plus a space battle that was everybody rallied across the universe against the First Order. And because they actually succeed, Hux actually commits suicide because he's got this whole side story in this narrative that he's collecting Force artifacts because he's obsessed with the Force and wants to be Force sensitive, but he isn't, and he ends up impaling himself on a lightsaber when he loses. In the draft that was leaked, it was actually supposed to be a purple lightsaber, implying that it was Mace Windu's. It's obviously a different version here. Maybe I can Photoshop that. Oh, that's perfect. Great stuff. There's this image here of General Leia. Again, this is before Carrie Fisher passed. This whole thing looks very much like a nod to A New Hope with a white outfit and all. It's not really clear what point in the movie that this takes place, but it was in it, that we know. Oh, this is Rey taking on a beast on Mortis before her final confrontation with Kylo Ren. Notice in the corner there it says D. Chang, who's of course a classic Star Wars concept artist. He's done consistently terrific work on a bunch of these films. We also know that when Rey and Kylo duel, here's a closer look at his mask. It's kind of Revan-esque. He actually slashes her across the face and blinds her. And then he ends up in a confrontation with Luke Skywalker, the ghost of, who manages to catch his lightsaber. An element of that, I guess, may have carried over when he catches the lightsaber that Rey throws. And it's from there that Rey rallies and comes back and, they duel again. And she's winning the duel, so he sucks the Force energy out of her, but then he gives her back and he's good or whatever, and then he dies. You know how these things go. And here we've got C-3PO mourning a broken R2-D2, who's apparently killed in the Battle of Coruscant. I mean, he's been killed before. I mean, he was shot in the head in the Death Star run, but he is actually revived. And this movie culminates in him recounting the events of the Star Wars from his perspective to people standing around watching and going, oh yeah, that's really interesting. What a great story. So yeah, that's essentially it. Now, if you do want more details on this, funnily enough, Ethan Taylor, who's done some animations on this channel before, he's currently working on a condensed version of this script, which is going to be animated. This is a test that he sent over to give you the general idea. That's going to be coming to this channel soon if you do want to subscribe. And also, you might be familiar with the 16-bit scenes that happen here as well. John Stratman is also working on one of those for Rise of Skywalker, also coming very soon. So yeah, again, you can subscribe if you want to see any of that. What do you think of this version though? Because I think there's some really interesting ideas that kind of come into play here. And it's really impossible to say that, this version would have been the definitively better version. I wasn't a huge fan of the Rise of Skywalker. So part of me is like, yeah, this seems, better in a lot of ways. But it's really all about the execution, so we really don't know. Anyway, thoughts on that? I'd love to hear it. Also, of course, I have a podcast called The Weekly Planet where we talk movies and comics and TV shows. That comes out every Monday morning. We always kick things off with the news of the week, which is going to include the Obi-Wan series, which is apparently delayed. So, that's bad or good. This Monday, we're talking about movies, I think, that are set in the year 2020, which is the year now, and how they probably got it wrong. There's a bunch of them. It's kind of fascinating. Reign of Fire. Remember that one about the dragons? Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about Reign of Fire. Anyways, that's linked below along with other videos and other things, etc., social medias and whatnot. All right, see you later. Thanks for watching this. Goodbye.